Big Drive Energy Hump Day edition. We're getting that much closer to the holidays, that much closer to Christmas, and not a lot of golf going on except for the Crypto.com match. So Crypto.com showdown, shall I say. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to have our Sheffy of the week. Some announcement on a 17-year-old turning pro going into 2025. We're going to discuss our boy Blades Brown. Also, Nelly Korda continuing to make the news. There was a list of the highest paid women athletes. So we'll get into that from 2024 and see where Nelly Korda falls into that. But first, I want to start out with, how was your weekend, brother? It's a great weekend to be a Broncos fan, that much closer to the playoffs. I was at the Broncos game, so I'm never going to complain about being there live, but the afternoon slate in the NFL was just off the charts.
Yeah, I definitely had a fun weekend of watching football. I definitely, Saturday felt a little, it was weird, not first day not having college football. I was kind of like, what are we doing? Watched a few Christmas movies, did some wrapping, things of that nature. And then Missy and I did our Christmas for each other Sunday night, but we had her mom and her grandparents over Sunday afternoon. So I was kind of cooking and we were all talking and all that good stuff. So I ended up kind of missing a decent amount of like the first half of the afternoon games. So that was tough. But obviously the Eagles Steelers game was good. The Broncos Colts game was insane. I just remember watching Jonathan Taylor walk into the end zone. I'm like, we're fucking hosed, down 20-6. And then all of a sudden, or was it 20-7? No,
it would have been 20-7. Yep.
Oh, 27. Okay. So we would have been down 2 scores at that point. And I was like, oh God, we're going to, like, I know we've come back a few times this year. We've actually looked pretty good, but just the fact that that was called back and then the whole momentum of the game just completely flipped. That was unexpected. But then our defense just completely went on a tear. Have you seen the stats? So the Broncos are tied with, I think, the Eagles and the Steelers for least points allowed per game.
Yeah, I saw that. And then, but turning in their defensive scores, it changes everything.
Yeah, their defense, the Broncos defense is like plus 39. And I think the Steelers like plus 7 and the Eagles is like plus 3. So the Broncos defense is scoring more than anybody. Like, if you just look at that box score in a vacuum, it is shocking how bad the Broncos box score looked. Like, what did Bo Nix throw for 125, 130 yards?
Yeah, I think it was like 130. And just being there, I was like, I don't understand how we won that game by 3 scores. It's insanity.
And I think we rushed for like 30 yards. I think we had a total of like 160 or 170 yards of offense. So just fucking absolutely bananas that we won that game by 18. And another fun fact, the Broncos have the most double-digit wins in the entire NFL, which I did not know either. More than any other team, we've won 7 games by double digits. So we're a covering machine. And the fact that we haven't been on that is kind of, it's tough betting on your own team because you always get overtaken by the emotion of it and you don't really want to get too high or too low. You feel like you can be more objective with other teams that you don't care so much about. But the fact that we haven't been on this Broncos streak in the pick'em has been a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, well, we've discussed this and we kind of play around with the idea of taking them in our pick'em every single week, and then we bail because I don't want to do it. Because we were the first 4 weeks, I think we picked wrong every single time. We were either on them when they lost or we were against them when they won. So
Correct.
They got the black ball. But teams like the Jaguars haven't gotten the black ball from us yet, which is insane.
I mean, the Jaguar. We didn't bet on the Jaguars, did we? We didn't take them in our
No, I
picks.
was just trying to think of the other shitty teams that we took this week, the Commanders, the whoever, whatever. But our pick six, we've hit 1 week, first time in 75 weeks for me doing this. So I'm still thrilled. I'm still on cloud nine about that.
Yeah, it's just I don't know how people are so good at it. And I guess maybe because I've watched so much sports. I guess this week, if we would have just taken every favorite, we would have hit because all the big money line favorites. Well, I guess I don't know if they covered. I'm sorry. Against the spread, I don't know how they did, but every single, it felt like big money line favorite won this week. But I've just seen too much football. I can see every possible scenario happening. Like I did want the Jets this week against the Jags, and they ended up squeaking it out. They did end up covering, but it was very tight. And then you even let the Broncos cloud your judgment on other games because you think every team that's chasing the Broncos is going to win. So you take the Dolphins against the Texans. They look like fucking dog water. And I have Tyreek Hill. I'm going to run this back real quick. I need to make a official announcement and give myself a little pat on the back. So if you follow along with our pod, you've heard us talk a little fantasy football here. I'm in 3 leagues, and I'm in the championship in 2 of them. And I am 1 week away, and I'm 45 points up from being in the championship in the 3rd one. So I would like you to make me a ribbon that says ball knower, number 1 ball knower on it, or fantasy football knower, whatever, however you want to do it. But I actually would like to get a little pat on the back from you because I don't think you've given me the credit where it's due. And injuries does play a big part. But I also drafted guys that I felt were not going to get injured, and they've been horses for me. I'll say it again, but Lad McConkey and Brock Bowers completely like changed my lineups because I got both of them late in every single league, and they've just been horses for me.
Yeah, it's the late round picks that really help you out. And I will give you a shout out. That's pretty impressive. The very interesting wrinkle to that is 2 of the 3 leagues that you're probably in the championship in are leagues that I'm also in that I will also probably be in the championship in against you. So we've got a Smith Brothers final in
Couple of
1
certified
league
ball
for sure.
here.
Yeah, 1 league for sure. We've got a final coming up. I had to check my lineup. I have 6 or 7 teams, so I'm not utterly confident on who my players are in the league that we're definitely guaranteed the championship. The other league, I do have a slight lead going into the 2nd week of the semifinals. So we'll see if we, end up both being in the championship. We're both leading right now. So it'll be interesting to see my team's not really a juggernaut, but is having a juggernaut end of the season. I'm coming on strong. I'm streaking when it means everything to streak. There was a fight in our fantasy league about 4 weeks ago when me and another guy were tied. I was only in the playoffs because I had more points than him. I ended up winning the last 2 weeks, and now am just going full on streaking in the playoffs, headed to the chip as the 4 seed in an 8-team league, 4-team playoff.
Yeah, I mean, you're not necessarily known for stepping up in clutch moments, but your fantasy football players have come through for you. And I guess as the manager of those teams, you can claim some sort of clutch gene off of that, I assume.
Yeah, well, there's 1 league, I think, maybe it's a different league. I've been I think I drafted Deebo Samuel in most of my leagues, who has as many receiving touchdowns this year as Bo Nix does. And so for me to overcome that in basically every league and still have championship teams is rather impressive, if you ask me, to be honest. But I have been sitting Jordan Addison, and he just keeps blowing up. And finally, Justin Jefferson's back on the train of scoring each week and getting, but I have Sam Darnold, who, he's a revelation this year, and I will, as long I get pretty dug in on my takes, especially in fantasy football, and I will never draft a quarterback high. There's always that 3rd, 4th round where one person drafts Lamar or whoever it is, and the next 7 picks are all quarterbacks because everybody's freaking out. And I will take it to my grave that you can win fantasy football every single year drafting your quarterback in the late rounds and or even I'd pick up guys week to week. I'd pick up a guy against the Raiders defense or this defense and be like, oh yeah, he's gonna have, you know, a 3 touchdown game. I think people drop Tua, and so I've got Tua in a league that I'm in the championship in. Granted, he's kind of screwed me this past week, but hopefully he flips it around.
I think he had like 4 points this last week for you.
3.68 to be exact.
I will say too, Jaylen Herz was not the first guy off the board by any means. And if you did take Josh Allen like number 1 as your fantasy quarterback, then you're probably in pretty good shape because that guy is tearing it up. But Jaylen Herz, I want to say, was like the probably the 4th or 5th quarterback off the board. And just the rushing aspect, obviously, I'm no Matthew fucking Barry here or anything, but the rushing aspect of Jaylen Hertz's game and how many times he gets in the end zone, I think he's averaging like 23 to 25 points a week. So, and a lot of that is rushing touchdowns. I mean, I think he's got double-digit rushing touchdowns this year. So he's the kind of dude that, even though he's been dog for throwing the ball, and then this week he goes off and throws for a shitload of yards. And another guy that I've been drafting as well these last few years is Devonta Smith, and he has not been in my lineup because I just have an embarrassment of riches. It's just so deep that I've been sitting Devonta, but these last few weeks, like last week, I think he had 28 points. So now I've got a little bit of a conundrum on my hands because I've got Terry McLaurin and I think Amon-Ra St. Brown. So, I mean, you really can't go wrong there. But then I've got a couple guys. I've got Bijan Robinson or Joe Mixon in my slot, or Josh Jacobs. I mean, it's just a fucking embarrassment of riches here. So it is tough. But there is certain guys where I feel like you can really, if you're not getting like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaylen Herz, really anybody other than that, I think going later rounds is fine. Like it's similar to running backs. If you're not getting, if you're not getting Saquon, or you're not getting A-Chain or Josh Jacobs or a bell cow, then you're fine with going later. But getting that mid-tier dude and spending, a mid-round pick on a guy that is kind of in between, I don't think that's really worth it. So, but I have one other, speaking of takes that you are firm on, and I kind of want to walk this one back a little bit. I've had a lot of hatred for the Hey Dude shoes, just mostly because I think that hillbillies wear them. Like all I've seen is just these like teenage hillbilly kids wearing these Hey Dudes. And so that's why it's not necessarily the shoe itself. It's like what the shoe represents. But then apparently Missy found LL Bean shoes that are like basically Hey Dudes. And so she got me a pair for Christmas, and they're fucking gas. Like they're so comfortable. They're meant to be more for like the beach because they're like a boat-ish shoe. But they're just so fucking comfy, and they are LL Bean, so they're not Hey Dude. But I'm officially walking back that. I'm not walking back the take that I don't like Hey Dudes, because I don't. I think they're still kind of just the brand itself I'm not all about, but the shoes themselves I think are gas, because these things are fucking awesome just to wear around the house. Like I would take these over Crocs any day of the week.
So, don't hate on Crocs, but so in the last calendar year,
I just threw that in there for you. Just
you knew, because I'd be sporting the Crocs, the wool lined Crocs all the time. My absolute elite going out shoe, going out of the house, not going out to party shoe. Let's get it. I don't go out to party anymore. I don't have a pair of shoes for that. But
doesn't Post Malone like party in Crocs or some shit?
Well, he can do it. Once you get to a certain level of fame, you can really do whatever you want in whatever you want, and then everybody else thinks it's cool. Like you make things cool. You're not like wearing the cool stuff, that you're wearing, stuff that you don't think is cool, and or that you just like is comfortable, whatever. And then if you're famous enough, it makes it cool. So you already opened Christmas gifts, and you're like living my wife's dream right now, because she's been asking our son every day if he wants to open a Christmas gift. And luckily yesterday she went to work, and the family she works for brought him home some gifts, or got him some gifts, just some books for Christmas. So she's been like shoving those in his face every morning. Like, hey, you want to open a gift? Hey, you want to open a gift? And she's, or any, like if I could have all my gifts open by now, if I wasn't standing strong. And it's one of those things where you don't want it to be over, so you delay it so long. That's how I am with gifts. I don't even want to open them on Christmas at this point. Maybe the day after, maybe 2 days after.
I know. Well, Missy and I had debated, because we're going to be in Colorado for like over 2 weeks. We debated going after Christmas or before Christmas, but there was a few things that I like. I got her a really nice new rain jacket that's like goes down to your knees. Shout out LL Bean once again. I love LL Bean shit. But I got her this nice rain jacket, and this week, like, she's going into the city tonight to go to a play with her grandparents. And it's supposed to be like raining, so it's going to be perfect. I wanted to give her some of that stuff that I know she can use. But other than that, yeah, I mean, I'm all for like waiting on Christmas gifts, because like you said, I get so depressed. Like when gifts are over, I'm just like, fucking, it feels like someone just let the air out of my balloon.
Yeah, I'm
But
like
it is
31 years old, and I get literally sad about having no more gifts to open. I don't know when I'll be able to shake that.
I really don't either. And do you know what I've learned too is that adulthood is just realizing that you can do whatever you want, relatively speaking, but you just have to have the self-control not to. Like, you just could look at Kylie and be like, what if we just open all of our gifts right now? And somebody's got to like police the situation, because otherwise you're just a couple of adolescents in grown-up bodies with money, and that becomes an issue. Like, I think to myself too, every time I go out to eat, I'm like, what if I just got like a fucking cinnamon roll and pancakes and all of this every single time? If I didn't give a shit, I 100% would. But it's just the act of having some sort of self-control and being like, I know that I can do this, but I'm not going to. It's just that I feel like that is one of the toughest things in adulthood, is having the world at your fingertips. Because don't get me wrong, there's a lot of shitty things about being an adult, but there is some cool stuff. And one of the cool things is being to do kind of what you want relatively when you want. And but that doesn't mean you should. Like, there's things that you can do that you probably shouldn't. So like a lot of drugs that I have never touched, thank God. But I could go do them, like, there's just things that enter your mind. It's those, what are those called? Intrusive thoughts, where you're like, I could do this shit, but I'm not going to. So kind of got to give yourself a pat on the back every day for just having some self-control as an adult.
That's a funny way to look at it. Just like, yeah, I didn't do 6 lines of Coke today. I should be happy with myself.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I didn't get fucking blackout drunk last night, which isn't all the time. It's not every night, but when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, fucking good for you, dude. Proud of you.
Proud of you. Pat on the back. All right, let's go into our Sheffy of the week before we get to the coverage and just, recapping the crypto.com showdown. So Sheffy of the week this week, it was hilarious yesterday during the showdown, or yeah, it was maybe during the showdown. Did you see Scottie Scheffler did a little interview with Kai Trump, who is clearly just like sending her, she's fucking tail riding, coat riding her grandpa,
riding his coattails.
Yeah, she's riding her last name's coattails to the top of this YouTube world, because I watched about 12 seconds of one of her YouTube videos the other day and was like, I'm gonna launch myself off my fucking roof. But
is it terrible? Like, what, doesn't she just do golf content?
No, she literally answers questions and gets millions of views. Like, she just has people submit questions on X or I don't know, Instagram maybe, and then just like I was sitting there just watching her answer questions. I was like, okay, I'm out for this. The golf content, decent, but
then you go touch grass if you're just watching an 18-year-old answer questions about herself on YouTube. You're like,
yeah, well, that's like what people do nowadays. I'm just too old to get into the real YouTube life. Shout out to YouTube. If you're not watching this on YouTube, go check it out if you are a YouTuber at Big Drive Energy Golf. But she asked him just straight out of the gate. It was so funny. Did you see this?
What was jail like? Is that what the interview
She was just like, hey, Scotty. And he's like, hey, how's it going? And she's like, how's jail? And he goes, actually, and he, the one thing that's really cool about Scotty is he's coming into his own personality wise, I think. Like, he's still goober, but there is definitely some things he's showing, and especially after the year he had, And we talked about the year he had last pod. So if you haven't checked that out, go check it out. YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you get your pods. But
SoundCloud?
Yeah, it's just like that's just YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. SoundCloud is just like
if we're on SoundCloud, we're fucking big time.
Yeah, that's where we used to be exclusively. Anyways, so she asked him how jail was, and he goes, it was kind of boring. I was honestly kind of bored in there. And she goes, orange looks good on you, though. He goes, I prefer burnt orange instead of the jail orange. So it was a nice little interaction there between Kai Trump and Scottie Scheffler. But our Sheffy of the week this week goes to Charles Snowdat, Raiders defensive player, So Las Vegas police officers found Raiders player Charles Snowden asleep and unresponsive in a running Jeep Grand Cherokee that was hanging off a 4-foot retaining wall early Tuesday morning. His BAC was more than double the legal limit, which is insane. But this is what's even crazier. Quote from the policeman or somebody on the scene. The driver would wake up for a few seconds, look around, but not seem to see the officers and fall back asleep. After 10 minutes, he unbuckled his seatbelt, turned the car off, and got out of the car.
Oh, my God. It was just hanging off the retaining wall.
And the best part is the original tweet from Las Vegas locally. It was another Raiders player arrested for DUI, not Raiders Charles Snowden arrested for DUI. It was just another Raiders player arrested for DUI, period. So Charles Snowden almost off the edge of a cliff in his Jeep. Shout out to him for Sheffy of the week.
I mean, that's a good one. I think Rory is our other Sheffy of the week, but we'll get into that here in a bit because he went nuclear yesterday. But I was listening to, they had the head of MGM on before the showdown yesterday. And he was talking about all the professional sports they've brought to Las Vegas. Like, thinking back on it, is there a worse franchise that you could have moved to Vegas than the Raiders? Like, holy
just
shit.
In terms of their overall team culture and
yes, their lack of accountability, it seems, in general. I don't know if there's like a worse franchise that you could have moved to Vegas and been like, here you go, here's $5 to $10 million for each of you. Go out and see what you can do with it. Like, I mean, look at Henry Ruggs, and now you've got all of these other dudes. There's guys that don't even play in Vegas that get in trouble in Vegas. So what do you think is going to happen to these guys that live and play? Like, honestly, I think we got to start looking at Max Crosby kind of like Mike Tomlin. Like, looking back on it, he's like a recovering drug addict, and he lives in Las Vegas. Like, that's got to be like staring the spoon in the eye like every day. He's got to just want to go do some drugs and like go gamble. Is it called? Well, it's called Sin City, but I feel like that's got to be the most tempting city you could possibly live in for anything you wanted to do, like basically in America.
Yeah, I think for every player that gets traded there, or when the teams actually moved to there or started there's got to be at least a couple weeks of figuring out getting these guys away from the strip and the parties. Like, there's got to be some sort of, like we were talking about having self-control as adults earlier. These players have to have a different level of self-control to live on the strip. Now, I've been to Vegas, 4 or 5 times. Love it. Love being on the strip till 3 or 4 in the morning. But I think there's something to the effect of, if you have candy in a bowl all the time, you don't always eat the candy. And so if you're living in Vegas,
isn't that your wife's like concept?
Yeah, which I will push back on that in terms of parenting for a long time, because when you don't have candy, you don't eat it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to control my kid picked up a peppermint the other day in the wrapper still from the ground and was like having a meltdown that he couldn't have it. I'm like, dude, that's going to go right down your throat. You're going to choke on it, and we're going to have to go to the ER. So different reason he can't have it now, but at some point I'm going to have to cut his sugar intake down because all he's going to want is candy, candy, candy. And I have to, I have to draw a line in the sand, stand firm.
I mean, could any part of that be the pancakes that you serve him for breakfast every morning?
Well, that's an inaccurate statement. I serve him pancakes maybe once every 2 weeks. He has eggs.
I feel like every time I talk to you, you're fucking putting on the Ritz for Saw Dogs. He's got the pancakes, he's got the strawberries, he's got a fucking yogurt, he's got eggs, he's got sausage. I'm like, this dude eats better than anybody I know, and it's just breakfast time. But yeah, you're talking about self-control. That's like you don't go to Green Bay and run fucking wild. There's nothing to do there. That's the equivalent of not having the candy bowl as opposed to putting somebody in Las Vegas. And we'll get to the golf eventually if that's what you're here for. But real quick, I want to ask you if you could pick one NFL franchise that you would like trust to move to Vegas and not just completely go fucking off the wall, who to be? Just like a culture top down standpoint.
Probably it would have been Belichick's Patriots for sure. That would have been the OG. Honestly, like I think the Broncos might be decent there. Sean Payton doesn't fuck around. That dude is very, runs a tight ship, very strict. Other honorable mentions, I'd say maybe the like 49ers. Because even a lot of the dudes that like play on that team, like what's Brock Purdy? Brock Purdy's not a guy that's going to go out and get in trouble. Kyle Shanahan runs a decently tight ship. Like they have some wild cards for sure. They've got some players that have some issues.
Brandon Ayuk, all those dudes on offense. You don't think they're going out?
No, I mean I think they have a decent culture overall. It's definitely diminishing and not what it was 2 to 3 years ago. But I think overall it's decent.
That's a fucking take you need to let die. I think Kyle Shanahan could be fucking leaving San Francisco and you'll still be like, bro, they got a Super Bowl run in them. You just know it.
Yeah, I mean 2 and 4 years, making it to 2 and 4 years is pretty incredible. But we don't need to argue this scenario again. Your girls' team is better than my girls' team, and it's very clear this year. And they're probably going to the Super Bowl. So, and if they're playing the Chiefs, I'm cheering for them. If they're playing anybody else, I'm cheering for the AFC.
No, that's fair. No, I will say the Eagles, I feel like in general have a fairly good culture, though. Like I don't hear a lot of them.
Their coach can't even. Their coach is fighting with people on the sidelines after they're winning by 20 points, and he's flipping off the fan base. He's a loose cannon. He's getting held together by the decent players on that roster. The coach is the worst part.
I'm talking about from an ownership standpoint, a top-down mentality. How often do you hear about anybody in the locker room like getting in trouble?
Not a ton, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Similar to like the Green Bay Packers. I think the Packers organization is pretty well run from the top down. But then even like the guys in Miami, guys in Houston, there's a lot of temptations. Once again, just going back to that self-control thing. But bringing it back, the whole Las Vegas situation. Let's just jump into the showdown because I've got plenty to say. I've got plenty of notes about it. But what did you think? I'm gonna start with this. What did you think about them playing it where they did and at the time of day that they did? Because clearly the guys were cold, and obviously you can't control it. It's December, no matter where you go. But do you think they could have done something different, or did you like their setup? Do you like how they did it?
I think the setup was cool because it was different, and I think that's where they've done enough of these now where they can see TV ratings and who brings the eyeballs, and it's definitely like the best matchup, I would say. Maybe not for a non-golfer, like a non-golfer that doesn't watch a ton of PGA Tour or Live Golf or just pay attention to golf at all. I think that matchup was more for the golf-centric people. It didn't get in like if you're watching Aaron Rodgers or Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, those were for the more general fans that just wanted to watch those guys play golf. But I think the change of going from celebrities in general to actual golf professionals, like players that play golf for a living and then competing against each other, I think the additional switch up of playing like the first 6 holes in the light and then the last 12 in the dark was kind of a cool change. And for me, watching it, I think it was fun because you're not like, you have to, these guys do this for a living. You can put them out, you can watch them any weekend play 18 holes of golf. So I think them switching up the format and making it in the dark added a little wrinkle of something that we don't see a ton from those guys.
No, I mean, I agree with that. It's just funny though, because there's a few shots where David Faraday was like, this shot's hard enough in the light, and now these guys can't fucking see anything. So that was kind of definitely a different wrinkle. My only problem was, and I don't know, like Bryson especially was being a kind of a big pussy about the entire thing, in my opinion. Wearing his parka, that's like a defensive lineman wearing sleeves. Like, you can't, even if you're cold, you can't let everybody else know you're cold. Because even Scottie Scheffler, like Scotty's from Texas, Rory's dealt with cold weather. They're all from warm weather. They live in warm weather states. It's not like any of them are from fucking Alaska or anything. But Bryson was the only one with a parka on, and maybe that was the whole Reebok situation, which I want to talk about. But he comes out in a parka, and then his just general demeanor, he was obviously not hitting it well. And I don't know, dude. Bryson, he went in the opposite direction for me a little bit last night, because it almost feels like he's so himself on YouTube that he gets out, like in his own little content bubble, that he gets back into like regular golf media, and he feels like he has to be completely different. Like there wasn't a whole lot of personality, and obviously Bryson and Bryson and Brooks were getting the fucking wheels beat off him. So there wasn't a bunch of kumbaya shit going on in that golf cart. But at the same time, like, there was no general conversation. There was no helping each other. Brooks kind of looked disgusted the whole time, and neither of them were hitting it great, but Bryson just kept missing clutch shot after clutch. Like, how many 5-6 footers did Bryson miss? And he kept missing them fucking left. And I could tell, like, I've watched enough golf and I've seen enough golf. I could tell he was lined up. His alignment was off. His putting alignment, he was lining up a straight putt on the left edge and then wondering why he was missing it left. So I don't know how he doesn't recognize that in real time, because he kept missing putts to the left. Like, I think he missed 4 or 5. And as an elite player, you kind of need to pick up on that fucking trend and realize, oh, maybe my alignment's off. And then, I don't know, man. Bryson, clearly I have a lot of thoughts on this, but also the fact that he cannot get to a single pin that's on the right side of the green is fucking insane to me. Like, if you wanted to just build an anti-Bryson golf course, you could just put every pin on the front right. He'd be fucking cooked. If it was long enough to where he didn't just have a wedge in from the left green side area, but if he was hitting an iron in to a front right pin on every single hole, he probably wouldn't be on fucking tour, because he hits such an exclusive draw. Like, I've never, in the last few years, I've not seen the dude move it left to right one time. And it truly is like wild what he's accomplished, given the fact that he is so one-sided in his ball striking. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, well, so I want to start off with a thought here, and we've kind of already talked about it a little bit, but just imagine this. Take yourself back to 2004. You're 9 years old, and you're just getting into golf, and you're like watching the PGA Tour, Tiger Woods, Vijay Singh going at it, and you tell somebody that, hey, in 20 years, the 4 biggest golf stars in the world that play on 2 completely separate tours in separate parts of the world will be playing a match in Vegas in December. Half of it's in the dark, and the winners are getting $10 million in cryptocurrency. What would 9-year-old you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you think about the future and you don't believe any of the shit that is going to happen. Like 15, 20 years from now, I'm sure there's a lot of shit that right now we can't even fathom that's going to happen. But in all honesty, I think lit golf, I don't even know what you'd call it, night golf, under the lights, is kind of part of the future, because now we've seen that golf is a money-making business. People are getting into the business of golf to make money if they own these courses. And think if you could offer tee times until 9-10 p.m. in the middle of the summer, even having 9 holes lit up, and offer tee times, relatively speaking, throughout the night, you're definitely getting a return on investment in that. And you're telling me that guys our age, people our age playing golf, wouldn't go play 9 holes at, 9 p.m. under the lights? like, especially with people working and in different schedules, it is much easier to do things at night. So, I mean, I think that night golf is kind of the way of the future, but it was also funny that Scottie, uh, he was like, I have no idea what cryptocurrency is, but I guess this is just good motivation. And that really kind of shows you, I know I've said in the past it is about the money, which it fucking is. Let's not sugarcoat it here. Let's call a spade. But at the same time, now I guess he has so much of it that he's just like, oh, 5 million in crypto. I guess I'll look into that at some point. I guess I'll figure out what that is. So he either has so much of it he doesn't care, or he just genuinely doesn't care about money at all. But yeah, the concept in general has definitely evolved. Of like, I don't know if you remember back in the day, they used to play the matches, which they're bringing back on the Golf Channel.
The
But it was
skins
like
games, right?
yeah, the skins games, and they had a few. I want to say they were shell match play back in like legitimately the 70s and 80s. I think even before the skins game, they would take two elite golfers like Jack Nicklaus, Lee Trevino, Chichi Rodriguez, all of those guys, just two of those dudes, and put them on an iconic venue and just have them play heads up. And I think the winner got like, whatever the amount was at the time, $100,000 towards a charity of their choice. So what it has evolved from then until what it is now is, yeah, it's fucking insane.
Yeah, it's just, I think going back to your night golf, I do think that is the golf of the future. And I feel genuinely bad for golf professionals out there, because your favorite thing as a golf professional and a seasonal, and really, like, you can play golf year round in almost everywhere in America, but there's still seasons. Like, you don't want to go play golf in the middle of the summer in Texas, Arizona. So there's some, off time, if you will, for a golf professional. But imagine the two golf professionals' two greatest friends, actually three greatest friends, are seasons, weather, and darkness, because those are the only things that get you away from the golf course. Otherwise, it's these lunatics out here are just wanting to play golf any moment of any day, and don't care what time of day it is, don't care where it is. So you start lighting up these golf courses, and I don't know if we're going to have many golf pros left by 2030 or 2040.
Well, I think there'll be golf pros, but I also think that golf is another area of life that is going to become automated. We already see it with driving ranges, where you don't have to go into the pro shop to buy a bucket of balls. You just go up to the ball machine, swipe your credit card, get a bucket. And look at even ranges now. If you can have Top Golf type ranges where balls filter down into an area that then get fucking churned through a cleaner and right back into the ball machine, you don't need somebody out there picking it. And realistically, on the golf course, you don't need people in the pro shop. I guarantee you in the next 20 years, we'll see golf courses go fully automated for check-in, where you can't even go into the pro shop and pay. There's probably going to be like a terminal where you select like a fucking McDonald's. You're like, I'm playing 18 holes, I'm riding in a cart and this and that, and you swipe your card and you're off. Like, there is so many things that you can automate now, that golf could be another victim of that. This technology that has come to light here in the last decade or so. It's fucking insane to think about. But at the same time, like, how many awkward conversations have you had checking in? I know you personally love as little human contact as possible. You would love to go check in for golf and not have to talk to a soul.
1,000,000%, 1,000,000%. And actually, speaking on the technology part of it, at the Broncos game, they have those drink markets where you scan your card and then you walk in and then you just walk out. And I was with Austin this weekend. He goes, dude, we didn't pay for those. We didn't pay for those. And I was like, no, yeah, we did. I scanned my card when we walked in, and then we walked out, and it like recognized our faces and what we got together, and saw the drinks and then charged me for them. So technology is moving in an insane different way. And just like, when does it stop? Like, that's what I don't want to, like, that's an intrusive thought where I could just go down a rabbit hole for hours, but there's a point where it's got to stop. But as of right now, it's just continuously every single year getting more insane and more insane.
what I would recommend to any person getting into the workforce right now is do something that cannot be taken over by technology. Like, and it is hopefully just like everything in this world, you know, trends are always very cyclical and come and go. Hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years, people get so sick of dealing with automated shit that they start actually hiring people and maybe just making sure that customer service is good. Because as a company, I mean, not to get too deep here, you know what kind of product you're getting when it's automated. You're not gonna get somebody that's rolling in fucking hungover or tired, doesn't want to be there, feels like they're underpaid. You're gonna get the same response every time. But when you find like a good customer service person, they can make or break a company, you know, dealing with a certain person in any different way of life can make or break your experience with that certain company and end up making that company more money. So but I would recommend doing something that cannot be replaced by technology, which it, I mean, I don't think you could technically get a golf lesson from a robot, but I don't think it'd go that fucking well. But you know, who knows? Just like we talked about earlier, 20 years from now, you could be standing out there on the driving range with one of those fucking robot dogs and they're telling you how to hit a draw. So you know, we don't know what the future looks like, but yeah, the technology is crazy. I have a few more quick notes that I want to go through before we move on. Faraday and Barkley on the panel was fucking fantastic. I love David Faraday. Did you hear Barkley say, so Bryson, when he flew the green with that on that par 3 and like hit someone? Did you see that?
No.
Okay, I think it was like the 11th or 12th hole. He pole hooked an iron shot, shocker, and fucking nuked it. No four, no nothing. And Chuck goes, "It's ironic the live guys out here trying to kill people."
Oh my God. What an
Dude,
out of pocket comment. Chuck is the best.
dude, I honestly think you need to add
Probably
Chuck to the
not a good time right now.
Dude, I've watched that clip probably 3 dozen times at the very least. I think we need to add Chuck to the list of people that you can't cancel. Like, he could kind of say anything and it's just almost expected. It's like the Terry Bradshaw, the old fucking out of pocket dude. They're just kind of grandfathered in. Like, you just take whatever they say with like a grain of salt. But I don't really think you can cancel the guy. I thought that Bubba. What did you think of Bubba being on the on course?
I think he did a decent job once he got into it. I think the start was rough. Like when they first brought him in and he's asking Bryson some questions, I'm like, this sounds like a 12-year-old reporter that has no clue what he's talking about, or like has handwritten questions on his sticky note that somebody else wrote for him. He didn't feel very comfortable at all to me.
I thought the exact same thing. They cut to him and like nobody introduced him or anything. He's like, Bryson, and he just starts with a question. Like, he didn't introduce Bryson, he didn't introduce himself. So yeah, he definitely, but it felt like he got a little bit more comfortable as the time went on. This brings me to another quick topic that I think a lot of people forget about. Do you remember that Bubba Watson owns a hovercraft?
No, I did not know that. I don't remember that.
Okay, so we've got to post a picture of the hovercraft here at some point, but he's got the coolest piece of golf machinery that you could possibly have. And we were just talking about technology earlier. How have golf hovercrafts not become a more popular thing? He can literally ride it across the water. He can take it anywhere. It does no damage to the greens. I had a dream last night, by the way, that I was driving all over the greens at this golf course, and I don't know what the fuck that was. But anywho, Bubba has got the sickest fucking hovercraft. How has that not become a thing? Like, maybe that's the next big thing in sports that we see. It's going to cost you probably $100 a loop, but if you could take a hovercraft around a golf course, I would do that 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, that'd be an incredible experience. I have a few notes that I wanted to get to as well, just some funny comments. I will give a shout out. We do shit on him a lot, and yes, it was a exhibition match, but still for a lot of money and a lot of people watching and a lot on the line. Like personally for these guys, I think because neither of them wanted to lose. Rory McIlroy played his bag off. He fucking golfed his ball from the jump, and didn't like when he nailed that putt on 3 from off the green when Bryson had just hit it to like 4 feet and did a role reversal of the US Open, basically, where Bryson then missed it and lost the hole. I knew it was over at that point. Like there was no chance for the boys to come back, the Liv boys to come back in that. But I will give a shout out to Rory just for, he was pretty funny too when he made the comment on like the first, second hole and Chuck was asking him how much he eats on the golf course, and he just fired back with not as much as you do. And just like I think that was really good for Rory in terms of his personality and in terms of, not that everybody thinks he's kind of a heel, but like we're in the minority there thinking that and just kind of giving him shit. And yes, he hasn't won in 10 years. We can get into all the stuff, but like overall, I think still a lot of people love him. But I think for the people that don't, or the people that are like in our corner of kind of out on him and ready for the, other people to move in that are actually winning and we should actually care about, I think he did himself a service playing in that and playing so well too. And then Brooks' comment when they said Bryson looks homeless in that coat, and Brooks just fired back with, if we don't pick it up, we might both be. Just such an ironic, funny comment because they're literally just not winning 10 million in crypto, but like the fact that just thinking about them being what they think is homeless and what we think is homeless and what a homeless person thinks is homeless is 3 very different worlds.
Yeah, he's probably like, I can't buy fucking Jenna this new Birkin bag if I don't win this crypto match we've got here today. But yeah, that was a good comment. Brooks was pretty funny. They got into like talking about their balls, and Chuck's like, how different are you and Bryson's balls? And Brooks was like, oh, they're very different. But then Chuck, did you hear Chuck dragging Bubba Watson?
No.
So I think it's partially because Bubba's a Georgia Bulldog and Chuck is a long, well-known Auburn fan and supporter. But he goes, I got a buddy back home that said you're his favorite golfer, and I told him we're not fucking friends anymore. He was just talking and he was like, and the ironic thing is my buddy's name is Bubba, and he's like, I love that Bubba Watson. He's like, I don't think you could get any dumber. just fuck. And Bubba's just listening to him drag him. Like Chuck is just a national treasure. And I think we'll look back on like the stuff that he's called 20, 30 years from now and be like, God, what I wouldn't give to just hear Chuck do color commentary on one of these events.
Yeah, it's he's just a legend. He's just a no doubter, a legend in the game of golf and being able to go talk basketball and just how funny he is on Inside the NBA, etc. But there was one last thing that I wanted to get to regarding this, and then we can move on. Liv Golf League tweeted, the game of golf, and its fans won tonight with like the hands like this, and had a picture of all 4 of them. Obviously, the Liv guys got destroyed. And then Antifaldo, who's a pretty funny Twitter account, he tweeted, I myself have been praying for a $10 million hit and giggle. A $10 million hit and giggle sponsored by a cryptocurrency company to be held on a random Tuesday night in December at the Cheesecake Factory. Finally, the last few years of strife are all worth it. $10 million hit and giggle is about the funniest fucking phrase I've seen in a hot minute.
Oh, fuck. I think that might be like an English term because I don't hear that often in America, but oh, fuck. I love going out for a good hit and giggle. That's pretty much every round of golf that I play, so.
We should just start calling our rounds of golf that, I think. That would be just like, yeah, hey, you want to go hit a nine-hole hit and giggle? Oh, fuck, that's so
That
good.
is an all-time name for a round of golf. That is... I swear to God, people would take golf less serious if you just called it that instead of fucking just golf.
Yeah.
You want to go have a hit and giggle? I guess you could call that my performance in the bedroom as well, but
Jesus, it's more like a 30-second hit and giggle. All right, moving on to the some other Liv news real quick. Greg Norman out as Liv CEO. His replacement is Scott ONeal. He has NBA and entertainment credentials. Norman says he's, quote, fine with it. And then My Golf Spy does a really good job of getting into like what this means. But I think really their second tweet was in the thread was kind of just a good point and kind of relays the whole situation. Is Norman was the disruptor Liv needed to kick down the PGA Tour's doors. but his loud, divisive style was never built to last. He created chaos. And so now they're trying to hire Scott ONeal to come in and kind of clean up the product. Like somebody like a Scott ONeal maybe couldn't have created this product. It needed to be disruptive to the world of professional golf in order to get off the ground. But now I think that they want to hire somebody with a little bit more, somebody that's not so divisive and outspoken. And Greg Norman was a great player back in his day, so I think he also had some goodwill with the game of golf and golf fans getting Liv off the ground. But now I think it's more time for them to like take it seriously, and especially if they're going to consider a merger at some point or consider being two of the same, it can't be. It's gotta notch back up to be a little more serious. I think at some point, like they're still gonna use use the music and the shorts and different things like that. But I do think there's a realm where they have to come a little bit more to the upper echelon PGA Tour level in terms of the broadcasting, the play, the presentation of the product, etc. Like I'm not dumb to the fact that it's a way lower level of that, hence the less eyeballs and TV deals and all that. But there is a point where I think they do need to up the product in order to make it more of something that PGA Tour would end up actually merging with.
Yeah, I think they could probably change their slogan to golf, but slightly louder. Just dumb it down just a hair. It's not louder. It's just you're just turning the volume up a couple ticks from the regular golf. But I mean, ultimately, Liv, a lot of people like it because it's so different. So I think you're just going to lose fans if you kind of just make another PGA Tour. Like it's different. It works because it is different. But yeah, I mean, Greg Norman, he's just another scorned lover. He got fucking rejected by the PGA Tour years ago for trying to build another tour, and here he is again getting booted off Liv. So him and his giant horn are going to go back up to the mountains in Colorado and just fucking fly fish and hunt his ass off until he's got to be old enough now where he just wants to hang him up. He's got plenty of money. Who knows? But yeah, that makes sense. And also the PGA Tour is looking for a CEO as well. So that'll be an interesting venture. Hopefully they hire somebody that isn't familiar with nonprofits and actually wants to make a business out of the PGA Tour. So
yeah. Next topic, we'll get to Blades Brown. 17-year-old Blades Brown will compete in professional golf in 2025. This is kind of different news because obviously we've seen teenagers compete. We've seen them stay as amateurs. We saw the whole thing with Nick Dunlap last year. And so this is kind of the opposite of what you talked about. And this is kind of what the way you wanted it to go with some of these phenoms that are younger is like, hey, skip college and just turn pro right away. He's already made a couple cuts on the PGA Tour. And he's just jumping right into the professional game and going to compete in 2025 as a 17-year-old. So one thing I did think is a little funny is his Twitter handle, X handle, is Blades Brown 2026. So he's still got like his, when he's it's like the huddle profile in bio. Like they don't really do that for golf. Like you just got to shoot the scores and you can do it anywhere and be fine. You don't necessarily need to get noticed. But it is funny that a guy on the PGA Tour in 2025 will have a Twitter handle that says Blades Brown 2026. Like, is that the year he wins his first major? He wins his first golf tournament? Like, let's give a prediction right now. What does he finish in the FedEx Cup point standings? Does he get I don't know for sure if he's going to play enough events to be like legitimate, but okay, let's do this. How many cuts does he make percentage wise? Like if he plays 8 tournaments, how many cuts is he making?
I'll say he's going to make 3 or 4. I'd go 40 to 50%. We'll see how many sponsors exemptions he gets, but I bet he's going to end up on the Korn Ferry Tour for a year or two, similar to like Akshay Bhatia. Ironically enough, I think they're both lefties, so he could kind of be like the next Akshay. But I mean, the dude's got plenty of game. It's just the matter of being 17 and being able to get out there and just managing the schedule. Like I think we saw Nick Dunlap kind of had a trial by fire this year and struggled a little bit. So I think he's going to be phenomenal. He's got the golf game to do it. It's more just about the scheduling and managing your time as a pro. So once he gets that under wraps, I think he's going to be phenomenal. But yeah, I think I think he'll get out on tour by 19 or 20. I think we give him a couple years, but no need for him to try to push to get out on tour at 17. He's got his whole life in front of him. So
Yeah, and then last topic before we get to our Mulligan of the Week, our favorite segment. Nelly Korda made the top 15 highest paid female athletes in 2024. So she falls in right at, let's see, number 8. She falls in at number 8. Number 1, Coco Gauff, $9.4 million in salary and another $21 million in endorsements. And this is a really cool graph that they from Sportico that they put out, because when you talk about highest paid athletes, there's the big contracts with Nike and stuff that people talk about, Tiger and Michael Jordan and what their endorsement makings are, but that's not talked about a lot. Like when you say a quarterback's, he's a $20 million man, that's strictly talking his salary. Now, some guys like, Brock Purdy aren't getting a ton of endorsement deals. Maybe he is now, but there's guys out there that are definitely way more in the endorsement game and they're on the commercials, Patrick Mahomes, guys like that. But it's cool to see the difference in how much these ladies make in endorsements and how much they actually make in salary and winnings. Like Eileen Gu, I may have said that wrong, but she's second on this list. And her salary is not even sniffing $1 million, and her endorsements are $22 million. And then you've got
forgive me for not knowing ball here, but what sport does she play?
I don't know. We're about to find this out.
Is she a tennis player? Or,
I would imagine. Oh, no, she's a freestyle skier.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah, she's 21 years old and already at 22. She makes more millions of dollars per year in endorsements than the age of her, which is insane. Didn't say that correctly at all, but you get the point. But Nelly Korda had $4.4 million in earnings and $10 million in endorsements in 2024. And then the two athletes right below her, Simone Biles and Caitlin Clark, both made around $11 million in just endorsements, and their salaries aren't even big enough to be put on the screen. I mean, Simone Biles being a gymnast, you don't really have a salary being an Olympic gymnast, but like even Caitlin Clark, her salary, you can't see it. The graph part of it's so low that it's just all endorsements, and she's the 10th highest paid female athlete in 2024. So just kind of a cool graph. Shout out to Sportico for that and seeing where a lot of these ladies finish. It is a lot of tennis players. Lydia Ko is the only other golfer that makes it. She had 3.2 million in earnings and then 3.5 in endorsements. So cool stuff to see. Obviously, Coco Gauff killing it. Eileen Gu, never heard. It was kind of surprising when you can make 22 million and it's not like a household name. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just not. I don't pay attention to freestyle skiing. I'm gonna have to ask Kale here and see if he knows who that is. But that's a pretty insane amount of earnings breakdown for one calendar year. All right, let's wrap up this week's Big Drive Energy with our favorite segment, Mulligan of the Week. I'm starting to stack these a little bit, so I get to kind of pick and choose.
I honestly think it's not fair that you have a kid and I don't. So you have all these things that go wrong, and I just live a pretty simple life with not as many issues. So my mulligans of the week are just not near as good as yours, in all honesty.
No, and this one actually doesn't have to do with my kid this time. So I was feeling a little sick at work last week. I brought soup in, and I didn't bring a bowl. So we have some bowls at work. Who knows how old they are? And so I'm a germaphobe a little bit. So it's like, I got to wash this bitch out. I was washing it out. I went to dump soap in it, and it like the top of the soap that we have, the like dish soap, is like stuck. So the whole lid popped off, and like a shitload of soap like fountained into my bowl. So I'm sitting there, and it was like that video where you're scrubbing your hair and somebody keeps putting shampoo in the top, and just you can never get it. So I kept scrubbing, thought the bowl was clean, thought the bowl was washed out, put my soup in it, warmed it up, went to go eat my soup, and I had chicken soap instead of chicken soup, and it was fucking terrible. It ruined my day. No lunch. Yeah. I just didn't eat lunch. I had one bite of chicken soap, and I was done.
Oh, yeah, that is the fucking worst. Mine is also food related. It's usually food or drink related, but I made a homemade batch of sloppy joes this last week, and I made 2 pounds just for Missy and I. And it turns out you don't need 2 pounds of sloppy joe mix. So we've been eating these leftovers for a fucking hot minute. And especially we're trying to clean out the fridge, so we're gonna be out of town for a few weeks. And sloppy Joe mix just gives me severe heartburn with all the onions and shit. So I'm basically just putting myself through this anguish of having to eat all this sloppy Joe. And that's kind of my fucking mulligan of the week. I know it's pretty lame. Other than that, just kind of living a simple life here. Not too many mistakes are made by me. So
that's good. You're staying upright in the bathroom late night. So that's good.
That's true. I didn't have any drunk accidents this week.
Mark 1 week safe from drunk accidents.
We will see, though, with the holiday season fast approaching, if I can fucking get into one here soon and see what kind of drunken hijinks I can get into here. So
prime time to recreate that. We appreciate you guys all tuning in to Big Drive Energy on this Wednesday hump day. Follow us on all the socials at Big Drive Energy on TikTok and Twitter, at Big Drive Energy Pod on Instagram. Make sure you're tuning in each and every week. If you're listening to this pod, you can always watch it on YouTube. If you're watching it on YouTube, hit us with a thumbs up on the way out. We always appreciate it. Enjoy your week. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the holidays. We will not have a show on Christmas, so we'll be back sometime potentially before the end of the year. So make sure you're always tuning in, following along. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.